Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to the every other Sunday Rooftops of America live stream. We'll call that a continuing to be a working title. Um, but it is every other Sunday, so at least there's some truth in advertising. Hope everybody is doing all right, having a good and safe Memorial Day weekend. Um, I'll be candid. I The pollen has been killing me lately up here. Um, I feel more congested and you know clogged up than I have since winter. So it has not been exactly the most enjoyable of things, but we're gonna make it through. I think. Hope everybody's doing good. It's been a pretty wild and crazy week over the last couple days. The work has been crazy, wild, love it. I haven't. It's funny, I feel like the real job sometimes gets in the way of this. So, but we're making it through. Um, Wednesday was eventful in the fact that the power company managed to slice our fiber in the common trench in two locations. So our whole little neighborhood, lost their uh, their internet if they were on FiOS for a couple days. I actually had to do a work-related panel via telephone, um, which was the weirdest thing in the world, considering it was talking about telework and um, you know doing engagement with your employees. It was just one of these weird things. So, um, what do we got here? So, Archie, hey Archie, how you doing? I have been enjoying the weekend. I hope you have been as well. I don't know if you got out for any adventures this weekend or if you're keeping it low key. Pretzel, how are you this evening? I'm doing all right. Eric, happy. Well, Memorial Day is not really a happy thing. Um, I hope your Memorial Day has been good, Eric. Bill, hello. How are you? Ron Man, how you doing? Pretzel, any upcoming plans for any more high points? And then David, hi. How are you? I'm doing great. I hope you are as well, David. Yeah, Vermont. I'm actually. It's funny. Over the last 2 weeks, I was like, I'm gonna write Pluto. I'm gonna get that out of the way so I can get that filmed and get that out to the people that have really enjoyed the solar system series. And then I found myself diving deep into Vermont, and I'm happy to say that that script is now about 85% done. Like it's got everything. I don't want to say it's the perfect script because no script is perfect, but it's a good one. I'm really pleased with it, and there's a lot of fun stuff there. And so I'm going to do Vermont probably around that June 17th weekend. So probably go up either that Thursday or the Friday before. And as I was thinking about it, and I know we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking like, yeah, I'm going to do Vermont, I could do Vermont. And, asking for trail recommendations. And then it occurred to me that there's something there that you don't get at every other high point. And frankly, I think it's going to look cool on film. So I'm going to cheat. I don't know if it's really cheating because high pointing is not peak bagging. High pointing, you just got to get to the top. How you get there is almost trivial as long as you get there. So I'm going to do the gondola because I think one, production wise, it's going to be cool. Like from looking at this as a production thing, the gondola is going to get good footage. It's the same reason you'd put a highway footage into something or train whatever or horse because it looks cool. It's different. Um, so the other thing I really like about it is there's the trail from the gondola up to the chin is like super aggressive. It's super short, but really aggressive. So I feel like there's this great tale of two cities sort of things. It was the easiest summit, it was the hardest summit. And I think that just makes for a fun contrast. I think it makes it, hopefully, it'll make it more entertaining to watch it. So, yeah. So that's sort of summed up why I do it over on June 17th. It's because that's when the summer gondola actually opens up, is that weekend. So tonight's beverage of choice is New Trail Raspberry White, Belgian style white ale with a bit of raspberry and spice. It's good. Had better. Let's see. Did you already climb Vermont? No. I already busted out on Vermont. I did fail on that peak in 2017, February 2017. When I think you could probably run out the expenses for highpointing, yeah, I actually have Rooftops of America as part of LLC, Big Man on a Hill Productions, which is sort of the blanket for all my endeavors, whether it's the solar system stuff, whether it's the upcoming Founding Fathers series, or other things. That's the blanket that everything sort of sits. Are you going to? I actually want to show the footage because in a moment of clarity, when I was coming down, knowing that I would always go back, I actually recorded my thoughts and feelings about not being able to successfully summit. So I got that in the can. Now I just got to find it. But that footage exists, and it's going to be a little hilarious to see, Sky from 2017, like 6 years ago. And it was in the winter. So it's going to be totally different. It really is, when you see it, going to take you out of the now. Like it really has a cool contrast. And I think that's the thing I sort of want. The underpinning theme of Mansfield is this now and then sort of contrast, even in some of the history stuff. When you go back to, when Vermont was being established, and you get these New Hampshire grants by one of the great rogues of colonial America, Governor Benning Wentworth, who truly is a rogue with a capital R. And if you're not familiar with him, he's worth looking up and reading about. He's responsible almost for the creation of 2 U.S. states, New Hampshire and Vermont. And but that part of Vermont was all land speculation. And when they were handing out these grants, the surveying on them was a bit suspect. So what potential pioneers and settlers were buying is not what the reality reflected when they got there. And that's one of the interesting things about Mansfield in general is, what it is and what it has been and how its role is played, like the comparison contrast. So that's my next big one. Vermont is the next high point. And then I've been debating, depending on how, like we're taking a family vacation at the end of July, and that sort of takes me all out of the high point because where we're going, all that stuff has been done. So there is what I'll end up doing in addition to going to the beach and enjoying my time with my family and friends and that is writing. I'll write probably a lot more every night while I'm there than I normally write, like a standard, work week. So that's the nice thing about vacation is sitting on the beach and I can just think big thoughts and come up with great ideas and, keep pushing stuff out. So, I've been thinking though that once I get Vermont, I would really like to pick up New Hampshire this year as well. So we'll see. We're going back to Arizona. I think I mentioned that before, but that's going to probably be the week after Labor Day. And then, I know I've told you this, going back to Wisconsin in the middle of August. So I will most likely pick up in a repeat. So maybe Ohio or Indiana will be redone. Ohio, that redo script is further along. Or maybe Michigan. So we'll see. A few high points in wintertime: Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. How many winter high points have you done? Very few. Sassafras Mountain on December 31st in 2017? 16? One of those years. Not a lick of snow to be had. Though, ironically, I was going to try to get up to Mount Mitchell the following day on the first of the year, because Mount Mitchell State Park usually has an event on New Year's. And unfortunately, the parkway was closed in both directions. So I was not able to do that. So, and then my favorite winter ascent, Point Reno, Washington, D.C. Take the metro to Tenleytown and hike to the summit in a blizzard. Like, it was really coming down. That was actually a lot of fun. And then Ebride Asmith. Like, I haven't done a lot in the winter. And normally, to me, high pointing is definitely sort of a spring, summer, fall thing. There's enough stuff on my plate to keep me occupied during the other months. So, let's see. Yeah, I could see that being really, because the Illinois one, because you're out there at Scales Mound and you're sort of out in the middle of nowhere, and yeah, just getting stuck in the ditch in the Midwest in the winter, having grown up there, always sucks. Have a chain. Doing Illinois on July 4th weekend. Nice. Rodman, have you been there before? Is that a first for you for Illinois? I really like Charles Mound. I've been there a few times. A few times as in twice. Excuse me. And I've been in Chicago. Nice. And I find Charles Mound to be very pastoral. Cue up the part from the William Tell overture. What's that? The one with the cows. You know the tune. I know you all know the tune because you've heard it, whether in cartoons or that. But that's the track that almost always goes through my head when I'm thinking about Charles Mound. By revisiting a location, you feel that you are missing out on a new experience where you could have went elsewhere. This thought makes me want to experience a lot. No, because most of the time, the pickups, the reshoots have been because I had to go to that area. So, a good example. Woodall Mountain, Mississippi. I'm going to see my in-laws. We're taking the kid to see his grandparents in Nashville. So I'm going to be there for 2 weeks. And that second week, I'm going to want to get away from it. So, going and picking that up is a great thing. Like, when I went and redid Wisconsin, Tim's Hill in November, it's because I was going to see my parents. So there was other events. So I really tried to map it out. Arizona's going to be a weird exception in that case, because that one is that one's personal, as dumb as it sounds, because when I see what we did immediately after, like with Colorado, which wasn't perfect, but it was 25 minutes, it's solid. It'd be longer these days. And then looking at, Colorado, Boundary Peak, Wheeler Peak. There were all these good stories, and I look at Arizona as this odd one out, and I feel like I missed so much. Like, I didn't experience everything, and I didn't tell a good story because I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, that's putting it, that's being rough about it, but I think it's the truth. Like, I knew the structure of what I wanted to do, but I didn't realize what I needed to do. That makes sense? So, you, you can make a good case. Eric, your point is valid. But I think now when I go to a place, I go so much better prepared. So if I'm going to go to a new destination, like say New York or Montana, like now when I go in, it's so much more clear like what I want to do there and what I want to experience and what I want to show people. Whereas in the heady early days, it was just like, oh my God, we're doing this. And we're going to try to make something that hopefully people will enjoy. And, I look at those really early ones, and I'm proud of what we did. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say they're crap, but they are rough. They're like the early sketches of something that has went on to be much more. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. If Chicago and its surrounding area were made a state, where would that high point be? I used to actually have an answer for that. So, if you look at the map of Illinois, your elevation in Illinois is actually two general areas. You have that northwestern corner, the driftless part, and that's where Charles Mound is, right off the border of Wisconsin, basically, tucked away up there. And then you start getting some elevation back when you go down to like the Shawnee National Forest. I think it's the Shawnee National Forest. Where you got Garden of the Gods and Lost Creek Wilderness, which is an absolutely stunning area. If you ever get a chance to go down to southern Illinois and hike through that area, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely wonderful. It's sort of one of these places where it's not an Illinois you would ever expect to find in Illinois, if that makes any sense. But you get more. There's some more rugged features down there in that part. I honestly though, it's a good question. I do not know exactly off the top of my head where that high point would be. I do know the Willis or Sears Tower would still be the tallest thing in the state, at least man-made. Illinois, of course, one of the few states where it's highest man-made construction. In fact, Illinois is the tallest state high point where a man-made feature, a building in this case, is actually taller. I should be careful with that because some of those antennas get super high. But a building, like a structure that people can go into. Davidson, I would like to go to the top of Wheeler Peak, New Mexico, and Mount Hope, Colorado. So let's go to Black Mesa, Oklahoma. All of those are fun. Black Mesa, I enjoy Black Mesa a lot. I think I've mentioned this story before on the channel. But when I was out there, we shot that in May of 2017. Ironically, I had to go to training in Denver, and then I booked extra leave around that training for my job to go shoot Kansas and then shoot Black Mesa. And the Kansas one was in the early part of the week, and it was hot, got sunburned. Like it was a blue sky day out in the prairie, and it was great. It was great. And then that following Friday, I think we hit it on Friday, was just soaking. Like Black Mesa was just a slog. It just rained and rained and rained. And the irony was not lost on me that this is the highest, driest place in Oklahoma. Except that day it wasn't. And the coolest thing though was it was green, like Ireland green. Wherever you looked, it was like the greenest green I'd seen in a long time. And so it was a black mesa that you wouldn't normally have seen, and that made it interesting. But I would like to go to Black Mesa in the summer, where you get like the experience, the traditional experience. It's actually on the list of redos as well, a little bit further down. How far is Wheeler from Black Mesa? I want to say it's like 5 hours. I'd have to look. Black Mesa is sort of out in the middle of nowhere. So, and then Wheeler, of course, is right outside Taos. But if you were to make the journey from Black Mesa to Wheeler, you'd probably go by one of my favorite little places, and that was Fort Union. And you go through, depending on the route, you might end up going through Glorieta Pass, which is the highest battlefield in the United States. So you have that to go as well. So, so one of the big things I think coming out, I'm hoping people will find interesting, was I think I'm going to roll out another set of shorts. And this one's going to be, 5 fast facts. And I know for a lot of folks, especially the stalwarts that have been with the channel for a long time, I have a feeling the shorts are a little bit, I don't say annoying, that's not the right word, but they're one of these things where I've looked at, like, this is a nice way to potentially pull people in. Like, I have noticed that when I ran the shorts for the AI stuff, it got eyeballs on the channel, and people, it pulled more people in. So I feel that another round might be worth it, do 5 fast facts for each state high point, or maybe each state and territory high point, and, put a little more content out there. I got back when I went to Black Mesa months ago. I got out of Las Vegas. It was 40 degrees. Somebody had a comment on one of the live streams, either last week or the last time or the time before, of getting stuck in the mud in Kansas. Which, yeah, since once you get off at Weston there, you are on dirt road, and that mud can get wild in the winter. Not the winter, but in the wet. So, MS. I got stuck in the mud. No, I think it was you, actually. Pretzel. Yep. David, if you do get up to Mount Elbert, that's a good one. That's a fun one. I have fond memories of that one. That was the first 14er I did. And I think being called the Gentle Giant is a relatively apt description. I mean, we went up the south. A lot of people do the north. And they get the joy of, 8 or 9 false summits, which has to be a little bit, demotivating. I will say this, like, when you're going up on the south, you can actually see the folks coming up on the north. And you can see the ridge line, or how they're coming up. And you can actually see all the false summits they have to go over. And, like, when you're doing the south, you have a clearer view of what you have to do. So, whereas, the north, you're just grinding up. So, I have some crazy high pointing stories. What's your craziest? Mine is, well, it depends on how you describe crazy. But one of the craziest I did filming wise was doing an 1,100-mile round trip day from Nashville to Driscoll Mountain and back. All in one. It took me like 21, 22 hours to drive, like to leave. I got up stupid early and left, drove all the way out there, shot everything as much as I could. I think it even like if you see the stuff, I think you can tell. And if you go back and watch it now, you'll see I look tired, and there's a reason I'm tired. But that was a wild day, and because on the way back, I actually stopped in Monroe because there was a beer store there I wanted to check out, and and also to give me a break to like just sort of get some food in me, talk to some people, get revitalized, and then get back in Monroe. But that was an absolutely ridiculous day. All I could think when I was doing it is like, this is the kind of stupid thing you would have did when you were like in the service. Like, oh, you got 96 hours, and you got 96, you got 4 days, go crazy. And that was so that's one level of crazy. The sort of, I don't think I've ever really done anything camera wise. Like, I gotta get this shot. Like, I need to put myself in some weird, crazy position to try to get a shot. None of that. I don't know. I try to approach. Eric, you'll know this with your current experience. That risk assessment is always going through my head, and especially when I have a group of people with me, like the risk thing. Like, you can take the NCO out of the service, but you can't take the service out of the NCO, I guess is a good way to look at it. So, but I think another one was not crazy, but stupid, was going out with Brett, my buddy, once again, Arizona. And the first big peak we're ever going to climb, and we hadn't seen each other in a while, and we were both in service together, and we decided we were not in our 40s, we were in our 20s. And we went out and, tied one on the night before Arizona, and then spent the next day absolutely miserable going up a mountain and trying to figure out if it was altitude sickness or just we were really hungover. But I don't know. They've all been relatively, like, if the craziness, I think, for me is more in how much I'm willing to do to go out and get it. So for me, like, I could look at driving from Nashville to Grayson Highlands in Tennessee, 6 hour, 7 hour drive, doing the whole thing, and then driving back, and that is acceptable. Like, that's a risk I'm willing to take. Like, so those, I love to drive. So that I'm willing to take that sort of gamble on that. So then, yeah, I don't know if that quite answers the wild craziness. So, let's see. I'm just looking to see if Willow Creek's close enough to drift. Nowhere near close enough. Yeah, the distances out west, man, get crazy. Including sleep, and that means it would take 20 hours. What future episode are you most excited to film? Archie, I think. I've gotten really keyed up about Vermont. I think mainly because I'm working on it right now, so I'm all like, it's all built up. But the one I really want to do justice to is like Gannett. Is like Gannett. Like, I feel if I can get Gannett done well, that could be like a definitive episode. Because there's so much you can do over the course of those days. Like, you're going to be out there for days. So there's going to have to be a lot of work to go into making sure, like, when we go to do it, it's all planned out. Like, we know the shots we want to get. I know my lines. We know how we're going to get drone footage, if we can pick up some of it there, or what we can do. I mean, yes, because we know that's not going to happen in the wilderness. You'll find in the wilderness, but in some areas you might be able to. So, but Gannett's Gannett. It's like that crazy. It's like a capstone course in a way. Like, everything you've learned for highpointing, everything you've learned hiking and camping and all that, it all comes together to get Gannett. I'd have to look it up. How long does it typically take to get from the summit to the base of Denali? I will leave that open to the group. If somebody has had the privilege of getting up there, if you can answer that question, that would be awesome. Denali's still in the not real part yet. Oh, I would love to drive. Vehicle choice for road trip. Right now, man, I'm driving my minivan. Like the greatest gear hauler in the world. I've got my Chrysler Pacifica. And if you would have told me 20 years ago that I would have a Chrysler Pacifica and I'd love it, I would have punched me in the face. But these days, I love it because I can haul all my gear. I can haul, all the cameras. Like, it's easy to get the camera in and out of. It just makes production easier. Like, it is a great vehicle for shooting. Especially like when I want to take a crew all around one little area, they can all be in the vehicle, and we can just go from one, and we don't have to have multiple vehicles in play like that, and you can just take everything you need. So, 20 years ago, I would have probably said something like a Tacoma or an F-150. We grew up on a farm, so like for me, having that farm pickup, we had I learned. I was telling somebody this the other day. I learned how to drive manual, actually on a tractor. But the first truck I ever drove manual was on the old Ford Explorer, and it had like super high stick. And you had to really lean into it to push the clutch down. And then we still had an old 100 series with had the H on the column. That was fun too. So, but yeah, I'm pretty pleased with my van. I can't do everything. Like, if in my dream world, like if this ever got up in scale and I could get a production vehicle, I'd probably get something like a Winnebago Rebel. REV, I'll even put it in. I saw one actually a couple years ago when we were going to go up Wheeler, and I just thought it was one of the coolest adventure vehicles I'd seen in a while. So I'd be open for other people's ideas on what you're going around with. The world record for fastest 50 high point summit went from Denali to Hawaii's in a day. Yeah. I'd be curious to know what you guys' thoughts were on something like that. For me, I know there are other people, like, when they first get into this, and I was guilty of it too. Like, in 2013 when I started, I was like doing How? A budget. Pretzel. That's how. Money. Helicopters are amazing things. Getting you to an airport fast is an amazing thing. So, but yeah, that's not to make too light of it, but um, I I find these days I like the slower pace of it. How do you? How don't you get altitude sickness from doing all that in a day? I honestly don't know. Stay hydrated, I guess. Be getting the sleep. Um, I mean, in some ways, if you clearly go into something like that trained. It's not like a guy like me thinking I'm gonna do the world record for high points right now. That ain't happening. Um, so I can't think of the guy's name a couple of years ago that did it. But yeah, you're going in. Like you don't in some ways you might have to put the work in, but you're not putting in the work to get to the places. Does that make sense? Like that's something to think about when people are getting the high points. They might not be driving from say Campbell Hill to Hoosier Hill. Somebody else is doing the driving. Yeah, Colin O'Brady, that's the name. Somebody else is doing that. So the work for the individual record holder, it's nothing, not to take anything away from them in any way, shape, or form. Um, but they're doing it with a crew. So that some of that logistics work is shared. Yeah, it's still an incredibly short amount of time. Eric, do you drive to locations or fly or rent a car? So everything in the East Coast was pretty much drive. Like when I was in Nashville, it was easy to pretty much do all the East Coast driving. Even like a couple across the river, like Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, down Louisiana, like that row of states right across is Mississippi. That was all done. Everything out west has been fly and rent. So now, or, bum a ride. So when we did Boundary, like I flew out to LAX, my buddy Brett picked me up, and, we drove his vehicle out to the White Mountains. And, but flew into, we both flew into Santa Fe, or no, Albuquerque, rented a car, drove up. So usually fly and rent if it's a Western thing. But if there's somebody in the area, say Black Mesa, my buddy Eric, he drove us. Or my friend Jess, she drove for both Nebraska and Kansas. She lives in Denver. Eric also lives in Denver. But even Maine's, yeah, I'm probably still going to drive Maine. I'll probably still drive up there. Mainly because I want to get, no pun intended, mainly because I want to get the full Maine experience. Archie, just so everybody's aware, Archie's banging the drum for the Canadian high points. We spoke about it a little while ago, and more power to people that endeavor for those. There's a few I think I'll end up going after, but some of the big ones, those might be for other folks. Well, see, that's the thing, isn't it? I don't remember his order. I'd be very curious to see what O'Brady's order was again. I saw it when he did this years ago. I didn't, but I think the order makes the whole difference. Like, you got to get Denali right away, because that's the make or break. Because that does take effort and time and conditions, are so variable there. And if you don't get that one right, why bother? So I'm with you, Archie. I'd rather enjoy the mountains than go for a speed record. I'm too old for the speed record now. And I feel like in some cases I'm the old man encouraging others to like take their time, enjoy the experience. Even though when I started this 10 years ago, I was like, I did 7 already, or I did 8. They're just knocking them down. And part of the reason I ended up starting this series was to catalog these for my own keepsakes, I guess you'd say. Everybody has their summit photos, myself included, but I wanted something a little bit more viable, something I could go back and be like, oh yeah, that's right. The clock starts on the summit. Yeah, I think you're right. You don't actually count the time getting up there. So that's a good point, Archie. Like once it starts on the first summit, you bag, and then it goes until the last one. Archie, I think it's going to be, since you're the young man here, you're going to have to go for the state and territories. Take the record even further. It's going to be a hell of a boat ride down from the volcano at Agrihan back to Saipan. So, anyway, man, it's 40 minutes flew by. I hope everybody's having a good weekend, and I hope you guys, it's the start of summer. So before we all go, Greg, when are you going to Summit K2? In my dreams, buddy. In my dreams. I would be happy to bag 3 of the 7. I'll take Denali for sure. I would be totally great with Kilimanjaro. And of course, as other people have heard me say, I would be totally, it would be a lifelong dream of mine to do Vincent in Antarctica. So I think with that, I would call it, that would be my 7 summits of the 3 I'd like to do. I think if I would have started earlier, thinking about that, I'd probably be a little more inclined to do potentially, depends how you if you want to do Erebus or Mont Blanc or both. Actually, Albert's my only 14er. I haven't had much time to get back up to Colorado. I wanted to pick up Gray, and I wanted to pick up Evans. One of them, hold on, if I remember right, Evans is the tallest mountain you can drive up to, so that's not really much of a. But I think Gray is. There's something about Mount Gray. Is it the tallest peak in the Continental Divide, the Western Continental Divide? I'll have to look it up. So, but I know a couple of friends of mine out in Denver have gone and done quite a few 14ers and had some interesting adventures on them, like sniffles and stuff like that. So, for me, like, I think if I lived there, I'd be down with it a lot more. But the thing I want to film the next time I go to Colorado is actually Star Dune. That's the next thing I want to actually buy because it's the tallest sand dune in the United States. So, anyway, before we sign off, anybody got any immediate plans with summer now sort of officially kicking out? Yeah, I've only seen pictures. I totally want to go there. I think it's so cool looking. Like it's such this amazing. Yes, I do have a plan. I'm doing an episode on Badwater Basin. It might very well end up being uh, the penultimate episode of Rooftops of America is the basement of America. Oh, nice. Because I've heard stories that people are like one step or two steps up, one step back on the whole way for that. Planning a backpack trip, first one, Harriman State Park. Nice. Bierstead in July. Look at you, Jess. Way to go. Take my damn family out to the breakfast listening. Nice. Um, yes. So, like, that and when I wrote all the episode, like, not wrote all that, but when I laid this whole out, even from the beginning, Death Valley Badwater Basin was always in the list. I feel that you can't. Why wouldn't you do it? It's probably a better question. So I'd like to bag some 14ers. I'll be going to Colorado once year. Greg on the stream right now is a good friend of mine, lover fishing, Jess. She actually lives out there, and she's been working on the 14ers. What other high points have you done besides the states and cities? I've done a couple county ones. Now that actually is a crazy high point story. I'll leave you with this. Okay. Allow me to set the stage. County high pointing is the Wild West of high pointing. I went to go with my wife to visit her grandmother in Bloomington, Missouri, which is down near the boot, near Sykeston. If those are familiar with Missouri. So it's down near that little heel. And the county down there is Stoddard County. And we've been there a couple days. I'm getting bored. I had been to Tom's Lock Mountain a couple times. And I'm like, I don't have time to run up to Tom's Lock Mountain, but maybe looking at a map real quick and looking at the county high pointers, I can go bag Stoddard County High Point because it's like 4 miles away from her grandma's house. So I go. And I find a good place to cross over and bushwhack up to the top. So as I'm bushwhacking up to the top, I'm hiking across the field, cross a fence, hike up through the woods. It's not a crazy climb at all. It's just that part of Missouri is flat. And then I get there, and the whole time as I'm starting to go up, I start hearing somebody in a 4-wheeler running back and forth, and I'm like, whatever. The train goes by. Well, by the time I get out and get back to my car, there is 2 good old boys there with shotguns waiting for me and informing me that they've already called the local sheriff because apparently, this is pro tip, the Stoddard County High Point is a privately owned game reserve these days and nobody's allowed on it. This is why I'm not really that much of a county high pointer. The sheriff shows up and asks me what I'm doing, and I just sort of played the stupid card and said, well, I looked at a map and I do high points. And he's like, what's high pointing? So I explained it. And I'm like, yeah, what I've always, like in your state, high point is Tom's Lock. And I get really excited about it, as you can tell. And he's listening, he's sort of rattle on. He's like, Okay, I get it. So, all right, not out here poaching, not out here stalking deer. I'm like, and I'm wearing like this vibrant blue jacket and like this orange, like clearly not a care in the world. Um, but yeah, that's probably the craziest high pointing story I've ever had. The only one with guns involved to date. So uh, now let's finish out these comments and call this a burn. Did you abandon the Karl Marx look for a haircut? I had to be professional. I had a work panel that I was part of for the other job, so I decided to slice it down a little bit. Uh, but yeah, by the time the end of the summer, most of that look will be back. Uh, so yeah, that trail coming up from Minnesota in the dark would be a little sketch. Uh, I It gets dark even in the day on that trail. The Wandering Woods, like PA kind of he's yeah, yeah. Like I said, I've watched a couple of his stuff, like when it comes to high pointing and things like that. Um, like I said, county high pointing, man, that stuff is crazy. So, but yeah, Stoddard County High Point is my craziest high pointing story, Eric. So there you go. And on that note, um, let's call it a day. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend. If you have tomorrow off, I hope you enjoy it. For those that don't, well, thank you so much for spending time with me tonight. I really, really appreciate it. So, I shall see you when I see you.